All right, I have Michael Popok here to continue my segment of interviewing the interviewer. Popok and I get a chance to talk every week on Unprecedented, but this is going to be a little bit different because I get to ask the questions and you have to answer them. And really, this is a chance, I kind of started this because I myself was always so curious. I know you guys all behind the scenes and I love all of the origin stories. And so let's delve into it. Now, you've been here. Okay, we're going to talk about Legal AF, which you started in a bit, but let's first talk about Meidas Touch because that's where it all started. And you were there on the ground floor. Back, what was it? March of 2020, April 2020? When did you first start doing your...
Well, yes, I joke with the brothers that I hold employee badge number 4.
Okay.
after the first 3 brothers. So yeah, listen, I had when I was a lawyer full-time in-house, I worked at a large Wall Street firm and I had a case against Ben Meidas and his firm, Garagos and Garagos, and Mark Garagos. And, to this day, he'll tell you that he beat me and I'll tell you that I kicked his ass, which is about right. But in any event, we became friends, started out as people who respected each other on the other side of a case. And that turned into, not only mutual respect, but friendship. And I was working with Ben and his firm on some cases when I started my own firm in New York. And then COVID hit. World shuts down in various places in different ways. In New York, it was a complete and total shutdown. I mean, you went home for 90 days and you weren't, and I was trying to run a new firm in that time. So I had a lot of time in my hands. Court system is closed. Mm-hmm. Judges are not hearing matters. You can't file anything for new case. You can't get new cases started. You can't progress your old cases. You can't get a trial setting. You can't, right? You can't get settlement negotiations because nobody's afraid of you because there's no trial coming up. So it was just like this. So I had like a lot, if I was working 3 hours a day on legal stuff, that would be a lot. So I had a lot of time in my hands. So I was clicking around, I don't know, LinkedIn or something, and I see that Ben announces that he's with this thing called Meidas Touch. And we're doing cases together. And I felt like I was a friend of his. Felt like I should have learned about that in advance. So I said to him, what is this thing? What is this Meidas Touch thing? He goes, oh, it's just a goof my brothers and I are doing. We're all unemployed. And we just wanted to put like it was a website. This website together, sort of moderate, liberal leaning. And I said, you need content? He goes, we are desperate for content. I said, well, I'll write some articles. And so I started writing articles. I had some people in my office writing some articles and feeding videos, people violating mask rules in Central Park. Here's a video clip, like stupid stuff. Super Mario Brothers race up and down Fifth Avenue, anything I saw, I sent to them. And then Ben, he's a lawyer, in training, and he wanted to do like a legal roundup. I think that's what we called it, legal roundup. And there's this joke and it's true, I did say it, that when he told me about it, and he had like 350 people that I think were members or subscribers to this website. And I thought this was an amazing idea and that it was bound to take off. And I said, I think this is a rocket ship idling on the launch pad. And he laughed. Mm-hmm. Because, they had like 500 people. And like, what do you mean? Yeah. And I said, no, I'm telling you, I just think this is really going to take off. And they jibe me with it occasionally. They're always mentioning that to me. And then he wanted to do this legal thing. And we started out as a 5-minute, 10-minute legal roundup. It was terrible. I had pandemic hair, and
I think you can still see those, by the way, when you go on YouTube.
It looked like it was like I took my son to work day. He looked like he was about 12. We were screaming into our laptops because we didn't have any equipment. And terrible lighting. Like, the only thing that was good was Brett was doing the production values. Okay. So we had all these like swooshy sounds and logos, and then it would turn on to Ben and me. It looked like we were in our garage doing whatever.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning. That was the connectivity with Ben and me. And I was just an opportunity that I fit well with me, like who I was as a person at the intersection of law and politics. So I was thrilled to contribute whatever I could when they first opened. And now, we started at the bottom and now we're here.
So from the beginning, like you said, you saw this was going to work. Now you have such a strong voice in Meidas Touch, Legal AF. People, Meidas Mighty, people who are just maybe in casual watchers really trust what you have to say about the law. They come to you feeling like you help explain it in a way to make it understandable in this very chaotic time. Do you feel like when did you in that process find your voice? Was there a moment where it clicked? Because that's not necessarily being a lawyer and talking to court. It's not really the same thing as a YouTuber, let's say, right? Yeah. So when did was there a moment there that it kind of all clicked?
That's a very good question. And, I think for me, my approach was, and Ben too, is that I'm a trial lawyer by training. And so I approached, even from the beginning, although it took me a while, maybe a year to find my voice, maybe a couple hundred episodes, and let my personality combine with my knowledge and my teaching ability, so to speak, to develop my point of view, my voice that was unique on YouTube. But in the beginning, I approached it like an oral argument or an opening statement or a closing argument in front of a jury. I've always done well in front of juries because of the authenticity, because of the trust that I would build with them, because I don't patronize them. I don't talk down to them. We take very complicated concepts in cases that I'm involved with, but I have to explain it to an average juror who may or may not be a college graduate, may or may not be a high school graduate. And I'm very respectful of their time and of the system and my role in it. And I've always been an effective advocate. I think in my career, my body of work says that's true. And then I combined it with some other, we're making a recipe, right? I combined it with some other ingredients. So like I did a lot of acting in high school.
Okay, we need to just take a beat here.
I was the president of my
drama club. What kind of acting in high school did you do?
Yeah. I mean, I was in all the musicals. I
I love that. Were you singing?
In Barnum. Yeah.
Awesome.
I was in Pippin.
Okay.
I was King
in a choir or a lead role?
I was King Charlemagne in Pippin.
That's awesome.
I was Conrad Birdie in Bye Bye Birdie.
Yeah.
The Elvis Presley character.
I was in Bye Bye Birdie too. I did musicals also, but I was always like in the choir role like that.
I was Conrad. I was Elvis.
That's awesome.
I did. I was the ringmaster in Barnum. I wasn't P.T. Barnum, but I was the ring. Kind of kept everything moving along. And then I did a lot of one-act plays. I even wrote a one-act play that won an award when I was in high school with my drama teacher. So I thought about acting in college, but I just didn't think, I didn't want to be a waiter my whole life.
Right.
I did some acting in college. I was fortunate to go to NYU with a very good film program. So a lot of my roommates were filmmakers and they needed a 20-minute film, actor. So I would volunteer to do those, kind of kept my hand in it, did some dorm plays, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I got that. And the last ingredient is I've been somebody politically oriented for almost his entire life. I mean, at 18, I was a Democratic delegate in my town. I was on the ballot, if you will, for the Monmouth County Democratic Party. So awesome. I've been into politics and American government and the American presidency for a long, long time. And voracious reader, even when I was a young child. So I just kind of combined. I was talking about politics with friends for free. So kind of just all came together when we reformed Legal AF. Originally, it was like any news story that was law related, we did. And we didn't really have a point of view. We didn't really have a focus. When we relaunched it as Legal AF, it's 4 years ago this week, by the way, as Legal AF. We decided that we needed to, the strike zone that we needed to hit was the intersection of law and politics. So it had to have, if it wasn't in that lane, you know, and there's stuff that I do on other shows. Like I have my own podcast called Popok Live. I'll do a little geo-political stuff. I'll do some global AF with Anthony Davis. But like for legal AF, we're focused on American law and politics and that intersection. And, you know, the timing of it was ideal because, you know, Trump, it was the end of the Trump administration, and then Jan 6th, and we're off and running.
Yeah, he creates a lot of legal news stories for sure. And so that kind of leads into legal AF. So probably a lot of people on Meidas have heard of the legal AF channel, but just in case, just to kind of circle it back, you started like the sister network, as you said. You described it as ESPN2 or
it's ESPN2. Yeah. We had always, I think when Meidas, when we went to YouTube full time, because we started out as Meidas started out as like a website. Now it's more of a Substack, but it was a website. And then it was a website, and then Meidas did a podcast. And then we started adding other podcasts. Legal AF was the second podcast. And so we were always following in the brothers' footsteps, right? We were always like the next one in, and that did well. And then it became kind of a YouTube channel, a YouTube network, a media network. And it sort of evolved so quickly before all of our very eyes that sometimes we have to, look back and say, wow, I mean, 4.5 years ago, this was a website. And now look at it, the number one, network in America on YouTube, and beating Joe Rogan by a lot, not a little. So when we talked about from a independent network standpoint, we only had so many slots a day for contributors, right? Even if you went every hour from morning, noon to night, there were only X amount of slots per day. So it was almost like an airport that only had one runway and one air traffic controller. And so if we wanted to expand, right, legal stuff, other contributors, we really needed another runway. And so that's the way I spoke about it. And I along with one of the producers, Adam Salton, who we call Salty, we've been pushing for like the last 3 years to open up another runway, at least for law, for me, at least for law and politics. And it wasn't about timing. It was just, we were so busy, to continue the plane analogy or metaphor, we were building the plane while we were flying it. So it was just, and all of us had day jobs. And so we just kind of backburnered that for a while as Meidas and the other podcasts were cultivated and continue to grow, and people like you joined, and other points of view, joined the audience and the network. And then I just said, I just saw again, just seeing the moment as being the election. And I was concerned that Democrats weren't going to win, to be honest. I had a compelling reason to start the channel either way, in terms of as a business model. But I was very, very concerned that we were going to be entering into a break the glass moment, and that Trump was going to somehow get back in. And I wanted a law and politics channel ready, up and running. So that's why we started it 2 months before the election.
And there are nonstop, just today and yesterday, nonstop Trump legal news. And just to further clarify, because I know when you started the channel, there was a lot of comments of like, wait, did Popok and Ben, are they separating? Is this there's a lot of questions on that. So just to put that to rest.
We're still married, but we live in separate homes. No, it's just that, as I said, think about it. There's only so many slots on the Meidas Touch channel. This is why ESPN started ESPN2 and Disney Plus. It's sort of like Meidas Plus with Legal AF. So we were going to do a number of things. I always wanted my own channel because I wanted to curate it myself. I wanted, just to branch out a little bit in collaboration with Meidas Touch and the brothers, but sort of my own thing. And so we kicked it around. It was going to be the Popok channel for a while. For like a couple of weeks, we called it the Popok channel. And then at the last minute, Ben said to me, he said, it's your channel in collaboration with us. We're going to do this together and promote it together. I said, great. He said, but maybe it would attract more other contributors if it wasn't just the Popok channel. because mostly when it's somebody's name and it's the channel, that's all it is. It's just that. I mean,
Right.
Brian Tyler Cohen, maybe it's a little bit different because he does all these little sub playlists, but it's really him. I mean, he brings in guests here and there, but we thought it'd be more, and I agree with it. I thought it'd be more attractive if it was, and we had this great brand that we had developed that was a thing, right? It was a known, as you said, a known thing, not just because of me, because of Ben and Karen Freeman Agnifilo, and you've come in and done and co-anchoring for us. It had a brand name of authenticity, of reliability, of credibility with our audience. And we were like, we'd be foolish not to use it and build on it. And I said, so why don't we make it the Legal AF channel? And that was it. And then together and then within 2 days on September 17th, it was up. It was boom. And I did 4 quick videos just to get content running. And, we've been blessed that the audience, like you said, follows me. I'm so humbled by that. They want to follow me to different places and in different roles. And they followed me there, and then you joined, and we got Court Accountability Action, and Lisa Graves, and Alex Aronson, Mike Sachs, and Shan Wu, and Karen when she's not busy trying cases. And so we got it, and all of a sudden we turned around, and we just passed a week ago 500,000 subscribers in less than 6 months.
And yes, and congratulations. And I kind of wanted to mark this interview to celebrate that. So Meidas Touch has Meidas Mighty. Is there going to be a name for the Legal AFers, or is it Legal AFers? Or
well, we've always called them the Legal AFers.
Okay, so
we should have a contest, maybe here in the notes here. What do you call it? The comments.
Yeah,
people could suggest other names. We should have a contest.
That's a good idea.
What they want to call themselves. We just came up with Legal AFers like on the fly once. Okay. Ben is. He's almost like George W. Bush. He loves nicknames and different things. And so like early on, I would do some analysis my own way, and Ben would go, that was very Popokian of you. And then all of a sudden it was like Popokian took off with the early audience.
Okay.
It's like the Mandalorian, Popokian, that took off. People said, we're Popok, we're Popokians. That was like around for a year or two. But it's it's all fun and games. But at the end of the day, our audience is, I said this on Popok Live last night. I wouldn't trade, if I could do it, I wouldn't trade our audience, its loyalty, its enthusiasm, its engagement, its interest, its knowledge base, its kindness, and intellect for any other audience out there, even our competitors, our direct competitors. I think our audience is special.
100%. I've been on other YouTube channels quite a bit, and it's not the same. Like, I was shocked when I first started doing this channel. And I was like, even if they maybe were pointing out something that I had made a mistake on, it was so kind and thoughtful. Yes. And I was like, wow, this is such a different audience. It is a different audience. And it's because it's always been treated like family. It's an extension of family. And
with respect.
And with respect, 100%. Yeah. And behind the scenes, the contributors and you and the Meidas brothers treat all of us like family. My sister got a really serious health diagnosis, and you picked up the phone and were like, what can I do? And you said, we're family. Yeah. And it meant a lot. But that is how you act in front of the camera, behind the camera, and how we treat each other, and how I think we treat the larger Meidas Mighty community, or Legal AFers, whatever you decide to call the Legal AFers. And I think that's why it works.
I agree with. Right. I'll tell people a little dirty secret. Dina, in the way she is before the camera, is exactly the same way. maybe warmer, maybe a little bit more. But what you see is what you get, which is a compliment. I can say the exact same thing for Lisa Graves. I can say the exact same. And I've spent time with them outside of the recording, with Alex Aronson. I haven't met Shan Wu in directly, but we've had a lot of conversations. Can say the same thing about him and the brothers too.
And I wanted to bring in your family because you highlight Natasha and Francesca so much on your Instagram. And it is so beautiful because as much as you treat us all like family, like you really like lift up your personal family. And, you know, on that note, I have something I want to show you if Brian can play it.
Yep, here we go.
Hey, baby, congratulations on 500,000 milestone. Yeah. I was there from the very beginning, never had doubt in you, and I'm sure there are more and more millions ahead. Good job. Go ahead. Congratulations.
Was that custom made for this interview?
That was custom made. I reached out to Natasha, your wife, and I was like, she recorded something for this interview. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, but I've been blessed. As most people know, I got married sort of late in life. I was happy single, but I'm much happier having found my mate. And for those that get to meet her and spend time with her, Natasha is a very special person who is a huge heart, came from another country, as people could probably tell from her accent, is a proud American. I mean, on one of our first dates at Yankee Stadium, she cried during the national anthem. I turned to her like, "Are you crying during the national anthem?" Yeah. She says, "Yes, because she chose this country.
Yeah.
She won the green card lottery. Mm-hmm. She was not planning to move to the States. She was planning to move to Europe.
Wow.
Out of her Iron Curtain country. And she reversed course because she didn't want to waste an opportunity. And so she and I talk a lot about politics and how this administration and the prior administrations impact her. You know, we have close family who are locked behind the Iron Curtain effectively. I've never met her sister, one of her nieces. I've met her mother, who we were able to bring out, and one of the other nieces. But you know, I see it through her eyes, and you know, she's a supremely hardworking person. I met her at work. I mean, I left and then asked her out, but I did meet her at work, and then we were blessed to have our daughter, which Ben, by the way, takes credit somehow for the birth of our daughter in only the way that Ben Meidas could. So, and I'll tell that story. I'll just tell that story. So we're big supporters of any way that you can have a child. We were having a little timing difficulty based on just work and different things. And so we decided to do IVF. The first time we were close, but it didn't work. And we were taking a break because we also had our wedding coming up. And so we were going to take a break for our wedding and Thanksgiving and all of that. And during that break in October, I told Ben I want to come out and see you guys and spend time with Sochi, his wife, and all that. This is before he had his baby. And so he said, "Great, come out." I said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I don't know. I'm going to hang out in WeHo in West Hollywood, do a rock and roll weekend, you know, with leather jackets or whatever we were going to do." Stay at a nice hotel. And then,
I could have only seen that.
Yeah, I know. It was fun. And then, yeah, we went to, Chateau Marmont for brunch. Yeah. You know, that was fun. Mm-hmm. And then he said, "Why don't you come up to this resort in, about an hour from the city and we'll meet you there?" I said, "Great." So we go to this resort. We stay over. We take a room for the night, a couple of nights. And that's where it happened without fertility treatment.
Wow. I love that. That's so sweet. So sweet.
So, and Ben's like, I get credit for that. I said, "What? Sorry."
I mean, just, the experience with, the sister behind the Iron Curtain or the IVF treatments, I mean, I feel like that informs all of that you're talking about. It's like the real impact. I mean, kind of going back to Trump, although it's annoying to go back to Trump, but it's for me, all his policies he's doing lately, I'm like, you're just making life, which is already so hard for people, harder.
Yeah.
That's the essence of what he does. And, but all of those life experiences, like you said, how beautiful, Natasha,
Yeah. And look, and it goes way back, and I've talked about it on the air before. I mean, my high school sweetheart got pregnant and we had to make a very hard decision together as 17-year-olds.
Wow. Yeah.
I think she was 16. And it's not the reason that I got into this business, so to speak. But early on, among all, I had no problem doing hot takes about reproductive rights, women's rights, abortion rights, women's right to choose and dignity, self-autonomy, bodily autonomy. I'm very comfortable talking about it as a man who supports women in that role. I've always lifted up women the best that I know how. Raised by a strong single mother. I'm surrounded by women now, as you know.
Yeah.
All we have is nieces, mother-in-laws. Unfortunately, all the dads have died.
Sorry.
And my daughter Francesca. So, I take it very, especially with the birth of Francesca, we take it so seriously about the need to defend women who have become citizens under Trump and the Trump administration. There's no other way, and women in half the states don't have the rights that they're supposed to have that my mother had in the 1970s. We're going in the wrong direction at high velocity.
The wrong direction and making an already difficult life harder for people unnecessarily. But yeah, it's so beautiful always. And that's why I reached out to Natasha, and she's so sweet. She's so nice. I love talking to her, but just how much you do lift her up, and, while she was pregnant, and just always supporting her and lift her and Francesca up.
And it runs the other way. Let's be frank. I mean, I spend now since 2025, when I'm really full time with Meidas Touch and Legal AF. I have a firm as well that I've talked about at length, but I'm really, devoting most of my quality time to in the media world, to the videos that we do to curate the other things. I can't disappear into a lonely office and stare at a microphone and a screen if I didn't have a loving and supporting wife behind me, who's never tapped her foot, who's never looked at her watch, who's never questioned. She knows my judgment about when I have to work and what I have to cover. Like yesterday was a perfect example. I did 9 videos and Popok Live. And we had 5 different court rulings that all came out one after another. And I covered almost all of them. And on Popok Live, I covered them all. And she never sat at the door, staring. Now, listen, I'd also pop out and spend a lot of time with her and the baby. Because that's one of the advantages of having this kind of career as well, and being able to do podcasting from home. But if I didn't have somebody, and I'm sure you do too with your husband, who I've met, lovely gentleman in your life.
Yes.
If we didn't have supportive family, we could not accomplish what we accomplish. And a lot of my success I can attribute to the support of my family and my wife.
And we are going to end. I've ended the other interviews with Mighty having the last word, but this time it's a Legal AFer. She started watching the Legal AF channel from the very beginning. She's been watching Meidas for about a year, she said. And she is a public school educator in Phoenix, Arizona. And her question to you is, with the dismantling of the Department of Education, how will this affect Title I schools receiving federal funding?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's been on the hit list for every Republican administration for the last 4 or 5, but none of them would do it, to destroy the Department of Education. We knew it was happening because Project 2025 had it in its playbook. They use federal funding and federal regulation, including in areas of discrimination. They use that as an excuse to try to push down all these issues, quote unquote, to the states, and to allow people to have voucher choice to go to private schools. All the people that are making these decisions, by the way, none of their kids went to public schools. I'm a public school kid. I went from preschool, kindergarten, right through the end. I was a proud public school kid. And so when you take the Department of Education formed by Jimmy Carter and a bipartisan Congress, which saw a need for there to be some sort of standards and uniformity and policing at the secondary school level. There's 50 million students that are So I think it may be more than that. I think it's at least 50 million students and about 12 million that are in college. And there were so many things, whether it was because they needed something to implement the federal policies, right? Like Title IX and Title I. Once Congress had all these rules and regulations and funding requirements and women in sports and all these things, like who was going to enforce it? The Department of Justice. Right. So it was natural. And then we had standardized test scores that were doing terribly. And we had, rural schools, and that's a code word for red states, and poor schools, red states, that weren't doing well in literacy and other things. And so the federal government, led by a president who came out of Plains, Georgia, a peanut farmer, a wealthy peanut farmer, but a peanut farmer, Jimmy Carter, got together, bipartisan, and said, we need a Department of Education. And the problem is, if Linda McMahon is going to chloroform the Department of Education and reduce it down to its smallest reduce it down so small that it could be drowned in a bathtub, which is what they're trying to do right now in a lot of different departments, then the result is that that money that would have went through the feds to the states and the schools is no longer going to be funded. It's going to cut the fuel line. And states which don't have that money, because they're not able to generate funds the way a properly run federal government is and its tax base and all of that. But Donald Trump has wrecked the tax base. He's defanged the Internal Revenue Service. He's stopped the flow of money into the government to be used for social services spending. And instead, he just thinks it's funny to cut off programming and list it on Elon Musk's website. And then be able to stand in front of the American people saying, you're not getting services, you're not getting funding, I've cut your programs, I've cut your social services and your safety net and your education programs. How am I doing? Well, not great. And so the question, what's her first name that asked the question?
Well, she didn't want to.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Well, I'll call her Sandy.
In this Trump world, it's like,
the problem that Sandy, my code name for her, has raised is that the states are not going to be able to step in and fill that financial gap. And the destruction of the Department of Education is code word for cutting off the federal funding. There's no suggestion by Trump that the funding that would have went through the Department of Education is going to be filtered through other places, or they're just going to give grants to states. He's cut off all the grants to states. That's the problem. He's cut off billions and billions of dollars to not-for-profits that help Americans every day, right? And state programs that help Americans every day. He's cut them off. If it wasn't for the federal courts stopping that, we'd be in a bigger pickle than we are right now. And is it any wonder that 60% of America thinks Donald Trump is doing a terrible, terrible job? So I can't give her false hope. I'm not going to blow smoke or sunshine. It's not going to be good if the Department of Education gets completely sidelined. The only saving grace, I said to somebody recently, how much of what's going on right now can the next president, a Democratic president, reverse? And how much can we start reversing if we get the House and the Senate back? And if we get the House and the Senate back in the midterms, we can put an extraordinary amount of pressure on the executive branch through budget to refund the things that he's cut off or cut out. And if we get the presidency, it's going to take a minute. It's not going to be overnight. He's doing, I wouldn't say it's irreparable damage, but it's damage that's going to take a full term, if not 2 terms, of the next presidency to fix. But it is fixable ultimately. But, again, he's just a bull in a china shop breaking everything in sight.
Yeah, we have to not look away and keep walking and gathering ourselves as we walk so we are ready for the midterms ready for the next presidency.
It's an easy bumper
until you
sticker.
find a better day. Right?
It's an easy bumper sticker. Give me the House and the Senate, I'll give you an impeachment and a conviction and a removal.
Yeah.
It's not, the math is not that hard.
Yeah.
And I'm all about, protests and rallies and yes, great. Call your senators and congresspeople because pressure does matter, and showing up at town halls and blowing them up matters. I mean, figuratively, but
and getting involved in your Democratic clubs now.
Absolutely,
yeah.
that was the little genius. That was the evil genius of Mitch McConnell, and Leonard Leo and others is that they started from the bottom. They started infiltrating school boards, local election races. They started dog catcher, board of education, commissioner, counselor, local board, even if it was not, nonpartisan. And suddenly, then they started getting secretaries of state, for each state, controlling elections, election boards. They were building from within. And we were watching it and going, that's interesting. But now we got our job cut out for us.
Absolutely.
This is a lot of fun. I want to interview you next.
Okay. That sounds fun.
Want to get your husband ready for a video.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck with that one. No, but this is so great. I'm so glad that we did do this. I think that this is like so important to have our community because so much of the news is dire. I always appreciate hearing your voice because it gives me the information without it sounding so dire, which is really needed. It's really needed. So glad you were able to sit down with me.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. This was a lot of fun. And we will talk, you and I, on a unprecedented another time. And who knows, maybe we'll do like another interview. Like, where are we in 6 months? We'll have to.
Hopefully our million. We'll cross the million odometer. I would love to do that with you.
That would be great.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.